The atmosphere in the View's studio buzzed with excitement as the crowd awaited the arrival of Michelle Obama. The audience was electric, many standing and applauding before she even appeared. Dressed in a tailored powder blue suit that radiated quiet power, Michelle entered the stage with the same poised confidence that had defined her years in the White House. She greeted the hosts warmly, hugs for Joy Behar and Sunny Hostin, a firm handshake for Sarah Haynes, and a brief embrace with Whoopi Goldberg. This wasn't Michelle's first time on the show, but something about this appearance felt different. The former First Lady was there to promote her new education-focused initiative, Root to Rise, a national movement aimed at reforming public school access for marginalized communities. The early part of the interview was smooth, even inspiring. Michelle spoke passionately about the initiative, sharing emotional stories about underfunded schools she'd visited and the young students whose futures depended on better infrastructure, better teachers, and better support. Joy Behar beamed with support. "You've always been about lifting people up, Michelle. This is exactly what the country needs right now." Sunny Hostin nodded, adding, "Especially when education is being politicized, this kind of advocacy is crucial." The audience applauded again, but then, the air shifted. Whoopi, known for her blunt questions and unapologetic demeanor, leaned forward, her expression unreadable. "Michelle," she began, "I respect what you're doing, but I have to ask, how do you respond to critics who say that during your time in the White House, you had the power to push these reforms but didn't?" The audience fell into a tense silence. Michelle's smile tightened just slightly. She adjusted in her seat. "That's not a fair assessment, Whoopi," she said calmly. "I spent 8 years working within a system built to resist change. The First Lady doesn't pass legislation, but I used my platform to fight for kids, for nutrition, for school equity." Whoopi didn't flinch. "But that's exactly the problem, isn't it? A platform without pressure. There's a feeling that there was too much, let's move, and not enough move on education policy. What do you say to the parents who feel abandoned during those years?" Michelle's posture straightened. "I say to them, I was there. I visited schools no one else would. I had to be the First Lady of all America, and that meant navigating expectations that were never placed on anyone before me." The tension grew sharp. Whoopi leaned in, voice firmer now. "But some would argue that being careful, being diplomatic, sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes, silence in the face of injustice looks a lot like complicity." Michelle blinked slowly. Her jaw set. "You think I was silent? I spoke through action. I carried myself with dignity because that's the only armor a black woman in power is allowed. If I raised my voice too high, they would have called me angry. If I pushed too hard, I would have been labeled threatening. Do you know what that's like? To be expected to fix centuries of injustice but not be allowed to appear loud while doing it." Whoopi's expression remained stoic, but there was a flicker of tension in her eyes. The rest of the table fell quiet. Even Joy looked unsure of what to say next. Michelle continued, her voice steady but intense. "You think books and speaking tours are branding. I call it reclaiming my story. You don't know the quiet battles I fought. Every room I entered, I had to earn my humanity all over again." The room was so quiet you could hear someone in the back row shuffle nervously. Michelle slowly stood up. "I didn't come here to argue. I came here to talk about kids. About schools. About change. But I won't be disrespected for how I survived the spotlight." She unhooked her mic with precision, placed it gently on the table, and gave a polite nod to the rest of the panel. Then she turned and walked off the set, her heels clicking with authority as the stunned audience sat frozen. The producers didn't know what to do. The teleprompters blinked, the floor director motioned frantically, and cameras scrambled to cut to commercial. The segment was meant to highlight a hopeful initiative. Instead, it had turned into live television history. Backstage, Michelle walked past stunned staff, refusing offers to cool down or continue the conversation later. She didn't slam doors. She didn't raise her voice. But her silence was louder than anything she'd said on camera. And within minutes, the internet was on fire. Backstage, the mood was a mixture of chaos and disbelief. Michelle Obama's sudden departure left producers scrambling. Interns rushed to their headsets, murmuring updates to the control room, while senior staff frantically debated whether to reach out to her team immediately or wait for tempers to cool. Michelle, however, didn't seem angry as much as she seemed deeply disappointed, her stride calm, her face composed, but her silence screamed louder than any words she could have said. Security escorted her swiftly through a side exit. She offered a brief, polite nod to a few staffers holding the studio doors, then disappeared into a black SUV waiting outside. She hadn't stormed off with fury, she'd left with purpose, the kind that follows years of being questioned, dissected, and doubted. Inside the studio, the hosts sat stunned in their seats as the show cut to commercial. Whoopi Goldberg sipped water quietly while glancing at the floor. Joy Behar fidgeted with her notes. Sunny Hostin looked visibly disturbed by what had unfolded. The audience whispered among themselves, still shocked by what they'd just witnessed. After the break, the show resumed, but the atmosphere was heavy, like a storm had just passed and no one was sure whether to sweep up the debris or pretend it never happened. Whoopi was the first to speak. "We want to take a moment to acknowledge what just happened," she said, her tone unusually measured. "Michelle Obama walked off this stage, and I want to say, I've always respected her. I still do. But this is The View. Our job is to ask hard questions." I asked one. Joy jumped in, her voice softer than usual. "Sure, Whoopi, but sometimes tone matters." That exchange wasn't just tough, it was personal. Sunny didn't hold back. "Michelle Obama is a symbol of grace under pressure. We have to recognize that women of color, especially someone like her, don't get the luxury of responding with the same fire that's thrown at them. She's been under a microscope for over a decade." The discussion quickly evolved into an emotional unpacking of not just what happened on set, but what it represented. Viewers watching at home flooded social media with reactions. Twitter and Instagram exploded within minutes, hashtag #MichaelDeservedBetter and hashtag TheViewMeltdown both trending simultaneously. Clips of the confrontation went viral, spliced, remixed, debated, and reshared thousands of times. Some defended Whoopi, praising her for speaking truth to power. Others were furious, claiming Michelle had been ambushed on a platform she thought was safe. The most common sentiment, however, was shock at seeing someone as poised and measured as Michelle Obama visibly shaken enough to walk off live television. By that evening, news outlets across the political spectrum had picked up the story. Headlines varied in tone. "Michelle Obama walks out after heated exchange on The View," and "Whoopi Goldberg grills Michelle Obama, too far." Interviews with media analysts and former White House aides filled the airwaves. And still, Michelle remained silent. For hours, her official social media accounts posted nothing. No press releases were issued from her team. That silence, however, only deepened the intrigue and amplified the importance of the moment. The next morning, Michelle finally broke her silence. On Instagram, she posted a photo of a classroom of young girls, diverse, bright-eyed, and eager. The caption read, "Sometimes the loudest moment is the one where you choose to walk away. I did not leave out of anger, I left to protect my peace. My mission has always been clear, to uplift and empower those who are often unheard, especially our children. When the focus shifts from the work to the spectacle, I choose the work every time." The post received over 4 million likes within hours. Public figures flooded the comments, Oprah, Viola Davis, and Ava DuVernay among them, offering messages of solidarity. Teachers across the country reshared the image, praising Michelle for standing firm in her purpose. Later that week, reports emerged that Michelle and Whoopi had spoken privately. Though no official statements were made, a mutual acquaintance leaked that the conversation was direct, honest, and respectful. The View neither confirmed nor denied it, but the following Monday's episode opened with Whoopi offering a brief, heartfelt reflection. "I've learned a lot this week," she said. "We all come from different roads. Sometimes, we ask questions that hit too close without meaning to. I want to say, Michelle, I hear you. That didn't erase what had happened, but it helped close the chapter." Still, the confrontation marked a turning point, not just for The View, but for public discourse in general. It sparked renewed conversations about how Black women are treated in the media, how power is scrutinized, and how even the most unshakable icons can be pushed too far. Michelle's walkout wasn't just a headline. It became a cultural moment, an example of dignity in retreat, of strength in silence, and of how even on the most watched stages, respect must never be taken for granted.